I love the way he plays bass.
I'm probably a better bass player than I am guitar. Let's give it a kick. Let's push it up.
We will not be defeated.
The year was 1968. The world was boiling.
Tired of people killing each other. I'm tired of police hitting kids. I'm tired of it all.
In the streets of Paris, students hurled cobblestones at riot police.
We had to take action.
Know that at the present time, at least 55% of the American people are opposed to this war.
In Chicago, protesters clashed violently outside the Democratic National Convention.
Water cannons hosing away now, and here come the rocks. Here come the pieces of paving stone that are being hurled through the air.
Across United States and United Kingdom, the old order was cracking under the weight of revolution, war, and rage.
My people first deserve freedom, justice, and equality.
The riot is the language of the unheard, and America has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened.
And somewhere in the middle of that chaos stood Keith Richards, cigarette hanging from his lips, acoustic guitar in his hands, trying to capture the sound of a world coming apart.
Is there likely to be any more behavior like yours on the podium of raising your fists in this salute? I would say you stick around and see.
The Rolling Stones had already transformed themselves from blues disciples into dangerous cultural icons. But by 1968, even they could feel the ground shaking beneath them.
You can't but help create your own establishment, and that's what we're doing. The only thing I've got against our establishment is that I don't like its rules, and so these are mine.
The optimism of the 1960s had curdled into paranoia. Assassinations filled newspaper headlines. Vietnam burned on television screens.
First time a social revolution broke through, where we're not saying we want to change the institution. We're saying, cut me in on my share.
Protest movements exploded across continents, and Mick Jagger had seen it firsthand.
I'm not interested in violence at all, unless it's like as part of a serious movement, which is a serious alternative plan. We've all got to try and change the world, because it's only us, that we can do it, But then it's a very slow job, but we can make our contribution. We all have to.
After witnessing the riots in Grosvenor Square during an anti-war protest in London, Jagger returned, disturbed, fascinated, energized. He brought the atmosphere back to Richards, the anger, the chanting crowds, the feeling that history itself was marching in the streets. But Keith Richards didn't want the song to sound polished. He wanted it to sound compressed, tight, violent, primitive. He wanted the recording to feel like it had been trapped inside a transistor radio during a revolution.
Let's give it a kick. Let's push it up.
I love the way he plays bass. That was very exciting for me, to have Keith play as many instruments as possible, because those are some of my favorite Stones records. When he played the bass and all the guitars.
I've done some bass tracks in my time, and I do love playing bass. I'm probably a better bass player than I am guitar. That goes back to Steve Jordan saying to me, how did you cut the Street Fighting Man?
Inside Olympic Studios in London, Richards began experimenting.
In those days, you say roughly what time, what time is the studio? You could say 8 or 9 in the evening, The band would turn up around midnight. Sometimes I would deliberately go in early, or if, I was with Charlie, for instance, and say, oh, let's go in early. And I'd go in just to sort of chop a few ideas about. But now and again, you'd actually find, this is the track.
Instead of plugging into giant amplifiers, he recorded with a tiny acoustic guitar, a Gibson Hummingbird, using a portable cassette machine.
There's not an electric guitar on that one. It's all overloaded acoustic. I realized that I could use the cassette machine basically as a pickup. And they play an acoustic guitar through it and they slam it through so loud that it was totally overloaded.
The cheap Philips cassette recorder distorted the sound naturally, crushing the acoustic strings into something gritty and explosive. It was an accident and a revelation.
See what comes out.
Richards later described the sound as dry, crunchy, and dirty.
Then they put a microphone on that and put it into the studio.
The acoustic guitar suddenly roared like an army marching through smoke-filled streets.
Basically, you have an electric guitar, but with the feel of an acoustic.
Charlie Watts added thunderous percussion. Brian Jones layered strange textures.
Street Fighting Man, I think, was the first one that occurred that way. Charlie and I were just fiddling about. And in there it sounds like a couple of people busking, you know. And Charlie's playing this tiny little traveling drum kit and I'm playing an acoustic. You know, yeah, well, let's just build up on it.
Producer Jimmy Miller pushed the rhythm harder and harder until the track felt less like rock music and more like controlled chaos.
People like Jimmy Miller coming onto the scene from America were very important too at this time. They did give them a kind of transatlantic sound, if you want to call it that, a kind of ubiquitous Americana with the Brit rock, pop, whatever you want to call it thing as well, which was an amalgamation of their sound. Jimmy Miller was a very clever drummer. He actually played drums on one of the tracks, I think. I mean, I'm not sure. He certainly had a stab at Jumpin' Jack Flash at one time. And there was one track he did that Charlie couldn't do, and I think he actually does play it on the album. Charlie was very good about that, actually. He said afterwards, I remember doing an interview with him, and he said, Jimmy Miller taught me something about drumming at that point, and I always remembered it. He wasn't a great live drummer, but he was a good drummer in the studio. And Charlie was, as usual, very gracious about that sort of thing, which, you know, somebody else might have been quite pissed off about, I would suspect. But Jimmy Miller was an important factor in Beggar's Banquet's success, I think.
Jimmy Miller was incredibly important to the Rolling Stones. I mean, Keith aptly described him, an incredible rhythm man. You know, and when you listen to, you know, those records he produced with the Stones, everything is a rhythm instrument. You know, Jagger's vocal, the guitars, everything's moving, the cowbells, all of this stuff is rolling through. He'd get into the studio and play them himself, you know, something that the Stones would absolutely respect.
And at the center of it all was Keith Richards' open-tuned guitar work. The riff itself was deceptively simple, but hypnotic. It stomped instead of swung. It marched instead of danced. Every chord sounded like boots hitting pavement.
We were working so hard in those days that you couldn't write them fast enough. I'll throw the bass on, you know, put another guitar on, and we sort of finished the track in 2 hours.
And it's got a very appealing, slightly ramshackle, semi-acoustic feel to it.
They're really kind of digging deep into the sort of roots of American music, and they're throwing off the sort of spangled cloak of flower power. And we're just not interested in that anymore. We're not interested in debutantes. We're really now interested in this idea of America. It brings about their greatest music, because I don't think any British band has ever come so close to tapping into the sort of soul of American roots music.
Basically starts there, and Mick would finish it off.
Then came Jagger's vocal. Everywhere I hear the sound of marching.
Everywhere I hear the sound of marching.
It wasn't just a lyric anymore. It was the sound of 1968 speaking through the speakers.
Just no place for street-fighting man.
But the song's release would ignite controversy almost immediately. When Street Fighting Man hit radio stations in America during the summer of 1968, the nation was already on edge after the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy.
My name is called disturbance.
There was a sort of element of Jagger just kind of, as a writer, I think really engaging the times.
I'll shout, I'll scream, I'll kill the king, I'll rage.
Cities were erupting in unrest. Demonstrations turned violent nightly on television. Many radio stations became terrified of the song. Some banned it outright. To nervous executives, the title alone sounded incendiary, a call to rebellion.
What can a poor boy do? Set the same for a rock and roll band.
Suddenly, the Rolling Stones weren't just musicians anymore. They were being treated like dangerous instigators. And yet, ironically, the song itself was filled with ambiguity.
Street Fighting Man, I mean, the kind of ironic anthem, an ironic political anthem, you know, this kind of sense of frustration at the same time as, you know, we're a band, you know, we're not leading the revolution.
I don't think he was leading that. He was simply looking at the papers and the news and seeing what was going on and then reflecting it as a younger person.
Jagger didn't sing like a revolutionary leader. He sang like an observer, frustrated, trapped, unsure whether rock musicians could truly change anything at all. What can a poor boy do except to sing for a rock and roll band?
What can a poor boy do? Except to sing for a rock and roll band.
That line became the heart of the song, because beneath all the swagger and fury, Street Fighting Man carried a deeper truth. Rock music could document revolution, but it could never fully control it.
Street Fighting Man was very reflective of the period in time with people on the streets for one reason or another, whether it was CND or anti-Vietnam or whatever it was. It was very reflective of student unrest and young people's disenchantment with the government and the authority of the times.
The time is right for violence revolution.
Still, Keith Richards had achieved something extraordinary. Using little more than an acoustic guitar, a cheap tape recorder, and instinct, he helped create one of the most explosive recordings in rock history.
It sounds really authentic to me. I mean, it sounds like a bunch of, you know, decadent English white boys, but who really are immersed in the feel of that music, and they really do it really well. You know, this isn't pastiche.
The sound of Street Fighting Man felt alive, compressed, distorted, claustrophobic, like history itself being squeezed through radio speakers.
Most great rock songs reflect the attitude of the audience and the generation at the time and the way that they feel. They hold a mirror up to the audience and they reflect back at each other.
It didn't sound clean. It sounded real.
That's what rock music actually does.
And decades later, that opening guitar still hits like a warning siren from another era.
Even as the Stones were, in a sense, coming apart, I mean, because this, you know, in a sense, that record is about the dissolution of Brian Jones. It also announced a kind of resurgence of the Rolling Stones chronicling a very complicated and troubled time. And not, you know, this wasn't Flower Power. You know, this is definitely sort of post-Flower Power. This is a kind of understanding of what was ahead.
Not polished, not perfect, but dangerous. Exactly the way Keith Richards wanted it.